and they had been working on a clean bill. You know, this has been a bipartisan approach.
Minnesota's great environmental legislator, Willard Munger, passed away 10 years ago this July. As the 1999 session began, Munger was fighting cancer. Jesse Ventura was governor, and the Republicans held the House in the environmental committee that Willard had chaired. It seemed forever. But the Duluth legend was undaunted. His daughter, Pat Munger-Lair, cared for him in her Glen Lake, Minnetonka home so he could fight the good fight even as he weakened. Minnesota's Mr. Environment will be remembered in Willard Munger, Earth Steward, a documentary being produced for public television.
Good to see you, Mr. Munger. It's a pleasure to have you back, sir.
Willard just persevered.
Nice to be back here with nice people like you.
And it was virtually every environmental law in the books after 1955 that he'd been a principal author or a second author. And you look at those bills and you think to yourself, God, every one of those bills had a history. He didn't just introduce it and the legislature jumped up and voted for it. Oftentimes you'd go for 8-10 years before a bill would finally acquire the sort of gravitas that made everybody take notice of it and recognize the significance of it.
You know, way back when I introduced my first bill, they referred to me as an environmental kook. You know, I still am an environmental kook, but I'm a respected environmental kook. See, that's the difference. My grandfather always told me that this clean water and these great beautiful forests will not be here forever if we don't take care of it. So he said to me when I was even in grade school, you just can't talk about it. You've got to get yourself elected to the legislature where it can actually do something.
I think a lot of it originated in his childhood, his grandfather's admonitions to him to make sure that Mule Lake, for example, as one example, one of his early childhood favorite lakes and his grandfather's favorite lake, would be protected against degradation of any sort.
And so he talked me in to get interested in politics, and I was interested in politics ever since I got out of high school. When I was 21 years, I was chairman of the Farm Labor Party of Ottertail County. And then in 1934, I ran for the legislature, but I got beat. In those days, the older people felt that anyone under 50 years old had no business in politics.
Hello, Willard.
Permission to put a sign in your yard here?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I'll
Thank
be
you.
glad to do it for you.
Thank you very much.
I'm a Republican, but I don't even know who his Republican opponent is. And I think that I know a little bit about politics. I couldn't even tell you who the Republican opponent is. If there's one election you can call for sure, it's Willard Munger's.
And he learned to think of his own place in the political world as being a place where you serve the public, the greater social good, the greater public good. You know, he'd always cook us breakfast, and so I feel terrible about sitting there week after week eating, sponging off Willard.
Even though it's a big U.S. deal, if you had to go 50-50, whatever, they should have had it done.
And so I'd try to pay him for breakfast. Oh, no, you can't do that. And that was a matter of principle, you know, that'd be buying him off, right?
You notice today I didn't do much talking. I listened, because that's the way you learn what the problems are, by listening to other people.
If you could point to the one person who had integrity, who absolutely was not bought by special interests, it was Willard Munger, longest serving member. But he was a tough foe.
Can you hunt and fish now?
Certainly can.
What do you need a
To
constitutional amendment?
make sure that we have those rights into the future.
That's a bunch of baloney. I'm awful bullheaded. I'm a hell of a poor loser.
I mean, there's still Willard stories passing around the legislature, I'm sure some of what you've heard. There's a famous example of a young lady who was at the University of Minnesota and wanted to get obtain funding for a study she had on fish genetics. And she was explaining her bill. And Willard began to sort of pursue some of this by saying, well, how big can you grow those walleyes? And she'd say, well, you know, it wouldn't take too much to grow walleyes to this size. And, well, can you grow them any larger than that? And finally, after he'd pursued this 2 or 3 steps down the road, she said, well, Mr. Chairman, how large would you want me to make these walleyes? And Willard sort of looked around. He said, well, large enough to eat all the Republicans here. Of course, the Republicans just busted it out.
We've basically been a me, we, I. Let's go watch the pro football game, have a beer, and forget about the rest of it kind of mentality. And Willard paddled his canoe against that kind of, frankly, stupid, narcissistic philosophy of life.
Minnesota's Mr. Environment will be remembered in Willard Munger, Earth Steward, a documentary being produced for public television. More on the film and a new biography about Willard Munger can be found on the web at willardmunger.org. I'm Tim O'Brien. Thanks for watching.
Democratic Visions is handmade in Eden Prairie and Minnetonka by DFL Senate District 42. Democratic Visions can also be seen on our website, dflsd42.org.